Hello, my name is Robin Yount, and today I'm going to be telling you about my speech called Messengers of Hope. I'm going to start off kind of with a quote that is something that relates a lot with my story and is something that has definitely empowered me to understand more of other people's stories. And that's by Brené Brown, and it's "The story is data with a soul." Part of that is understanding that with every story is a purpose and a meaning behind it. And the reason why I'm giving this particular subject and topic attention is I've had two really close friends of mine take their lives in my life, and it's something that's affected me in many, many ways. And it's a really difficult topic to talk about, and it's difficult for people to open up for and give others opportunity to be there for them. And part of that is with reason, and if it will let me share my screen here. In Idaho, it is the fifth highest suicide rate in the US, which in Idaho is also, the number rate is 57% higher than the national average. It's the second leading cause in Idaho. And not only that, if I scroll down here, but in our county, as you can see in Kootenai County right here, it also has the second highest rating just in our county, but it also is the youngest age range. It has multiple, over the range from 12 to 25 is the main area of suicide. And as we see, is been a problem for not just the past couple, 10, maybe 20 years. It's been a problem for many, many years in this county especially. And with that is the main problem that we see is society tends to have a struggle with the fact that being vulnerable is seen as being weak, and being vulnerable is being seen as being weak, which isn't true. That is a myth. And along with another myth is another thing I have here. And the myth is talking about suicide is a bad idea and can be interpreted as encouragement. That is not true. An actual fact is that given the widespread stigma around suicide, most people who are contemplating suicide don't know who to speak to. Rather than encouraging suicidal behavior, talking openly which will give an individual other options, therefore is preventing suicide. That's one of the scariest parts of having suicidal thoughts, is thinking you're out of options. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, is thinking you have no hope left. And being vulnerable doesn't mean you're weak. And fighting against negative thoughts is extremely difficult. And I know that, and I understand that. And I've seen it happen. But what we can do to help is helping others understand where they're at. Is helping them meet where they're at, and knowing that not being okay is okay. It's just not okay to stay there. And they're not alone. That's also a misconception that comes with being suicidal, is that you're alone in it, is that you have these feelings by yourself, and that's simply not true. Just by statistics, you can see there are hundreds of thousands of people that think the same thoughts and struggle with the same thing. And some people have attempted and completed suicide, and some people haven't and are glad they're still here today. And with that, helping understand that today is not an indicative of tomorrow. Whatever happens today doesn't mean it's going to affect tomorrow ultimately. Fearing what tomorrow brings is already inducing anxiety and stress and fear of what tomorrow is going to bring without knowing. And here's where we can do the most damage, I should say, against depression, is celebrating or rewarding people's efforts just because they're here the next day. Being thankful for that. Being thankful for the fact that they are here with us. And with that understanding, it's gotten even more difficult in the current times we're in. In COVID, as I switch over my next use, is coping tips during COVID. It's difficult to maintain and start new relationships when we're quarantined and when we're away from friends and when we start to lose friends because of being away from them. So one of them is setting a limit on media consumption, including social media, local or national news. So part of the problem we hear constantly is fear. It's fear inducing. It's telling us what's wrong, what's going on. Not often do we get to see the good that's going around the world. So setting a limit, not saying just completely go away from it because that's ignoring the problem, but acknowledging there's a problem, but not being so scared and so fear induced by that problem. Part of that is taking steps towards having boundaries and staying active, going on jogs outside. That's again, make sure you're getting fresh air, eating healthy foods, figure out ways to do some exercise, stay away from lots of caffeine and alcohol. That's important parts of that can affect people's moods and has been proven in many things. And some of the benefits that will come from this is imagining a positive society that is only valuing, or not only, but putting a higher value on being positive and encouraging others and letting them know you're glad they're still here. It's even more of a difficult thing with teens is this is a range that is specifically escalated in the past 25 years. Since 2007 alone, there's been multiple more cases, up 44% since 2016, now in 2020. And watching teens just have to have this pressure on them to fix what our culture goes through and to fix the problems that have been problems for years but are just getting noticed now. This is something that our teens are dealing with, and the pressure is extremely hard. And I completely want to be encouragements, and I want to challenge you guys to be those encouragements too. Lastly, here's some ultimate coping mechanisms or ways to fight depression and anxiety and to help others. Part of that is meeting yourself where you're at, and meeting yourself at knowing that there are certain disorders you may have, and knowing that there are disadvantages to where you are. For every person is different. So sometimes that's a very, very big difficulty because you'll feel very alone in that. Another one is knowing that today is not, like I said earlier, an indicative of tomorrow. And down here, it's doing the opposite of what the depression voice suggests. So when you are having feelings of depression, or you feel like you should just stay down and maybe I should just lay in my bed all day, and not that resting is a bad thing. It's never a bad thing, but it's always good to be healthy and to go for jogs and eat healthy food, to hang out with friends, to stay away from social media for a while, and to do things that are good for yourself. And so with that, I want to continue on and notice that some of the benefits is when we check up on other people and when we check up on our friends or even complete strangers, it's letting them know we care enough to check on them. And that can be extremely scary and dangerous, but it's so worth it when you take the time to do that. And lastly, I want to challenge you guys with something. I want to challenge you guys to take one day to be strictly positive, to avoid whatever those negative temptations are, but to only say positive things to your friends, to only say positive things to yourself. Because really, some of the things that we say to ourselves is something that we would never let someone say to us. And when we get that in our heads, we can understand that we are much more than what our thoughts can make us think. And with that, I want to challenge you guys just to be positive and to take one day just to be strictly positive, no negative thoughts, and to try to buckle down and try to make sure you're secure in yourself and to make sure you're secure in who people who are positive towards you say you are. And notice the changes. Maybe if you have to write down what people's reactions are. And from that, if you're noticing positive things, if you're noticing positive reactions, from that point forward, continue it. Don't be afraid to continue to be positive no matter what other people think. Because in the end, you know that it's helpful. And I appreciate you guys for listening to this. And yeah, so I just hope that you guys are willing to hold yourselves accountable and motivate yourselves to do that. Thank you.
Can we ask a question?
Yes, this is question time now. Sean, I think you're muted.
Yes, Robin, I was muted.
Yeah. Okay.
Good job. You had mentioned that this was one of the top areas, I believe it was, of deaths in young people. What was it, 18 to 24 in Kootenai County?
12 to 25 is the main ages that are especially getting increased. It's not even like by year, it's like daily it's going up.
So what, in your research, what do you think is the number one cause of that?
I would say, from doing my research, is noticing that social media especially has a major toll on teens, especially when it's viewed so highly and valued. It's putting on a perception of someone's life. And when you see that someone else's life is better than yours, and you can see it so easily through just opening your phone, that causes a negative thought pattern that this person's better than you are. And that creates anxiety and negative thought patterns, and it can create suicide. It can lead into suicidal thoughts. So I would say that suicidal thoughts can be majorly told by social media. And I think that because that is also used so highly in the youth today, that you also see the same amount of advances in technologies in social media are compared to the number of suicide and the suicide rate for ages 12 to 25. And you'll see that literally go up together, like as parallels on statistics with the technology. So while social media and technology is advancing, the number of suicide rates in young teens is also advancing.
So a question for you would be, if I wanted to convince my kids that there are positives to social media and the access to it, but there are dangers to it, where would you recommend I point them to? Where are you getting some of your data from? Where would I point them to so that they could maybe see some of the dangers?
Seeing the dangers, there's several documentaries. There's one on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. I would definitely have them watch that, because that's personally, I thought it was an amazing new perception, especially since it's coming from the people who created it. So watching them talk about what they did to try to get people more addicted and more into their app and get more usage out of it has also created problems. And they're talked about all the things that they're seeing. And I would definitely suggest you tell your kids to watch that and to I would support that completely, especially since it's coming from the creators of that. So yeah, I would say that one was a huge area that you could use. Any other questions? All right, sweet. Thank you guys so much for listening. I think I'm gonna end the recording here. Thank you.